Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you for joining us on the Thursday Night Hockey Show, the final Thursday Night Hockey Show of the season. I will be doing a show on the draft, but that is a Friday night, and it'll be on TikTok only. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But um, yeah, so final show of the season. We're going to do a little bit of a season in review as far as my predictions at the beginning of the season, which are very laughable. Kind of embarrassing. I'll put myself through that embarrassment, but that's the purpose of making the picks at the beginning of the season, so you can look at them at the end of the season. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why, absolutely why, I do not bet on sports because I suck at it. So, anyway, so big news in the NHL this week. Of course, Vegas winning their first Stanley Cup 6 years after coming into existence. I think it's very important that the Vegas Golden Knights did claim their first cup because it's starting to get a little crowded in Las Vegas with the news that the Oakland A's are more than likely going to be moving to the city. To Sin City to take up residence there as well. There's going to be a new multi-million-dollar baseball stadium put up in Vegas, um, to kind of stake that claim and be that dominance. They're always gonna be that first team that made that took the chance of being in Vegas. Um, uh, by winning the championship, they are the first team in Vegas to win a championship. So, I mean, well, yeah, we can talk about UNLV, but first major professional sports championship in the history of the city. So, it was very important for the franchise, long-term financial health of the franchise that because it's becoming such a crowded market now that they stake their claim as the dominant team in the Las Vegas. So, but good on them. Good on Jack Eichel. It's a tortured relationship between Buffalo Sabres fans and Jack Eichel. Um, uh, and one day we'll do a whole show on why things did not work in Buffalo with Jack Eichel. There's a lot of reasons why it didn't work in Buffalo with Jack Eichel. Some were Jack's reasons and some were Buffalo's reasons. Um, but he gets his cup. He did not win the Conn Smythe, and I know some of the Sabres fans who still really love Jack Eichel were mad that he didn't win the Conn Smythe trophy off of the uh, 4 or 5 game win in the Stanley Cup Finals. The guy was an assist machine. He had what 6 goals and 20 assists in the playoffs. Phenomenal, great. I think he had the most points of anybody in the playoffs. And but the problem is he didn't score a goal in the last 2 rounds. He set up plenty of goals. Absolutely set up plenty of goals. I think if he potted maybe 2 goals in the finals, or had scored a bunch in the scored goals in the conference finals and maybe a goal in the finals, that the Conn Smythe would have been his. But because he didn't score a goal, I think it rightfully went to Jonathan Marchessault. You could have made the case for Aiden Hill, even on the back end, Alex Petrangelo or Alec Martinez. All had phenomenal playoffs. Jack, not to take anything away from Jack Eichel, he was uh, full value. I mean, that's what Buffalo Sabres fans wanted to see with Jack Eichel, is just that he never got into the playoffs in Buffalo. And, there was always that lingering doubt until he got into the playoffs. Um, I had a lot of Buffalo fans say, well, Buffalo absolutely lost the trade with Alex Tuck and Peyton Krebs now that Jack Eichel's won a cup, which is, I mean, it's kind of silly. And it's almost like saying that, well, Jack Eichel is obviously a better player because he won a cup before Connor McDavid. It doesn't quite work that way. Um, and it's hard to make that judgment right now. About 5 years down the line, we can absolutely grade that trade. Alex Tuck will, I don't think he's be retired at that point, but he'll be close to retirement. We'll get an idea of what Peyton Krebs is, and we'll get an idea of what Noah Osterlin turns into. The draft pick that the Buffalo Sabres picked with that from that trade. So, um, but anyway, congrats to the Vegas Golden Knights. I know there are a lot of people not really happy that the Vegas Golden Knights won because they're an expansion franchise. They shouldn't do it. This is by design. The NHL revamped how they did uh, expansion franchises a few years ago, when they knew that they were going to go through another round of expansion, because they learned from what they did to Columbus, Nashville, Atlanta, in Minnesota, how they struggled for years trying to develop an identity and keep a foothold in their cities. What they did was, make the teams better coming out of the gate. So we saw it with Vegas, going all the way to Stanley Cup Finals that first year. Seattle getting into the playoffs this year, winning a round against the defending Stanley Cup champions. This is by design. The owners of the NHL teams get a crap ton of money in exchange for giving these new franchises kind of a leg up in the game. Now, I didn't agree with how Seattle built their franchise. That draft lottery or draft expansion draft was kind of awful, but they've done a really good job building their team after that. So, um, but yeah, this is by design. And when I'm saying when the NHL decides to expand again, I think by 4 teams, they're going to take the money and run and allow those teams to be really good coming out of the gate. So, but that's by design. Vegas got their cup. Um, Now, do they build a dynasty? They want to go back to back. They all said they want to go to back to back. Or does the owner say, "Well, I've put in a lot of money into this franchise. I've got my cup. My name is going to be on the cup." Um, does he pull a Wayne Huizenga and blow up the team in the offseason? It's conceivable. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights have been in salary cap hell for several years. The salary cap's going to go up a little, and they're going to have like $3 or $4 million on the cap. But they got things to decide in Vegas going forward. So, um, as always, when we hear about teams winning or losing the Stanley Cup, finally start hearing about what happened to that player, or this player, or that player. Um, we hear that Aaron Ekblad had an injured shoulder. I didn't think Aaron Ekblad had a good playoffs overall. I think some of his defensive partners played better than he did, and I think that this is definitely probably the reason why is that he had an injured shoulder. Now he's had surgery. Apparently, he's going to be out before the first part of the training camp. Not sure whether he's going to be able to return for the regular season on time or not. Um, and then Matthew Kachuk. What more can you say about this guy? He was an absolute warrior. Um, he tried to come out in game 4. They really limited his ice time. He ended up on the ice for the final minutes or so, but he had a fractured sternum, and I've gotta figure that that probably feels like when your sternum needs to pop, but it won't pop, it just gives you more pain. I gotta figure that's what that feels like, and I couldn't imagine playing with that, and especially a contact sport where people are trying to rub you out against the boards. It's not a that would probably is one of the worst injuries to try and play with because when you think about all the torquing you do with your chest as just skating up and down the ice, taking a shot, things like that. Um, I'm not surprised you missed game 5. By then, I think Florida knew the writing was on the wall. If Matthew wasn't full bore, they were just kinda delaying the inevitable, and we saw that, the way that they kind of flopped in game 4 once that first goal went in, it just spiraled out of control for the Panthers, so, um, let's see, other news in the NHL, Jason Spezza has moved to the front office of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He is I gotta move your team's logo. Fractured sternum just pulses with pain after every breath. Oh, yeah, that sounds like fun. Absolutely sounds like fun. But yeah, Jason Spezza moves to the front office of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He served a special assistant role with Kyle Dubas in Toronto last season after retiring. After the Leafs season ended not this past year, but the year before. Now he is the assistant GM. Generally, the assistant GM takes over the minor league operations of the AHL affiliate. So he'll probably be kind of what the general manager of the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins and kind of learning on the job. So it looks like Jason Spezza is going to try and move in that general manager realm. So we'll see how that works out. I detailed that when Dubas took the job of the daunting task that anybody taking over Pittsburgh has. The fact that they've traded off all of their first round draft picks, that the draft picks that they've made in subsequent rounds have been awful, that just by the grace of God in the signing college free agents, that Pittsburgh still has a semblance of a team, because they have been awful at drafting and trading off the top draft picks that they have been getting. So um, I think Kyle Dubas would be good to not start tossing around first round draft picks for probably about 5 years now. So um, Jesper Bratt of the New Jersey Devils signed an 8-year, $63 million contract to stay with the burgeoning franchise that takes about 7.875 million average annual value on that contract. He think he becomes the third highest paid Devil um, in that organization. They Devils still have pretty good amount of cap space. A lot of their young talent have not quite hit that area where they need to start getting paid, but uh, this is a team that has signed some good players to value contracts and are in good shape. They jumped almost 50 points in the standings last year, which is I think it was a record from points jump in one season. I don't think that they go quite that high next year, but it's a really good franchise. They've got pretty much everything they need. Still not quite sold on Vitek Vanacek as their goaltender, um, but then they had that rookie goaltender kind of step up towards the end of the season, so maybe they do have the guy in nets for them. But, yeah, Lindy Ruff's got a good team on his hands there in, New Jersey. Let's see, Michael Andelauer, part owner of the Montreal Canadiens, is going to divest his shares of the Montreal Canadiens and buy the Ottawa Senators. This, ends the whole speculation, who's going to own the Ottawa Senators. There's a couple consortiums, celebrities rumored from Ryan Reynolds, who owns Wrexham Athletic in the whatever tier they are in the English soccer leagues, football leagues, um, and Snoop Dogg. They're kind of rumored to be in groups that were trying to purchase the Ottawa Senators. Um, didn't work out. It's a moneyed guy from Toronto who owns part of the Canadians right now. He has to sell those shares in the Canadians to be able to buy the Ottawa Senators. You can't have an owner owning two teams, which makes sense. Um, so look for that. He's pledged lots of money for a new arena. That has been one of the contentions that really drove the the issues in Ottawa. Is that they have an older arena. I mean, I'm not going to say it's that old. It's 90s era arena, but they want a brand new arena. The problem with the arena is the location. It's in Canada, which is across the river from the main part of Ottawa. So getting the arena closer to downtown Ottawa and making it more fan family friendly to get people to those games. Um, and of course, the owners want a new building. They want the new revenue that comes with suites and concessions and all that stuff. So no word on if they're going to be using any public financing for an Ottawa Senators arena, um, but I would assume that they're going to end up having some kind of public financing with it because that's the way arenas go. Um, can't have these rich guys putting out their own money. So um, let's see, is that it? Yeah. So yeah, we've had months of speculations about the sale of the Ottawa Senators. Eugene Melnick died last year, and ever since then they've been wanting to sell the Senators. Um, the sale price is amazing though, because my Sabres sold in like I think it was 2011 for $112 million, something along those lines. The Pagulos bought that from Tom Golisano. Um, and Tom Golisano bought the Sabres from the league for a song, like, I wanna say 40 million back in 2005, 2004, 2005. Um, and I tell you that the valuation of franchises has just gotten out of control. $1 billion for a team that is in a bad arena situation, that hasn't been in the playoffs for a few seasons, that has they're trending upwards. No, let's not make a mistake there. They are trending upwards. They've got a good young team. They may be about another year away from the playoffs. They may make the playoffs next year. Um, just depends on what they do in free agency this year. Um, but that this is a it's a lot of money. Like, I could see buying the Toronto Maple Leafs, or even uh, franchises in a major city like Dallas, or even the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, Phoenix is like the fifth largest franchise, or fifth largest city in the United States, fifth largest media market by that standard. Yeah, Ottawa is just a little odd, but I'm sure that's probably going to kick off a wave of team sales, because now owners know that they can get a crap ton of money for their teams. So, um, let's see. Draft is coming up, and the NHL.com has done their draft board. They have a consensus on the top four. And like I said earlier, uh, on Friday, I think it's next Friday. Yeah, what is that? The 24th, 25th is the NHL draft. It's in Nashville. I'll be doing a live stream on TikTok that night. So if you want to drop by and talk hockey about the first round of the NHL draft, who gets picked, who gets moved, all the fun stuff that happens that day, feel free to join me over on TikTok. It's the Political Deep Dave on TikTok. Um, but, there's a consensus amongst the yeah, so I'm sorry, it's, June 28th. So, yeah, Friday, June 28th is no, that's the, first round is June 28th. Let me get the official date there. Wow, that's an interesting time. So it's on a Wednesday, and then Thursday, they're having rounds 2 through 7. It's usually on a Thursday or Friday and a Saturday, but, so I might not be able to do a live show for that, because I'll be in DC on that day. So anyway, we'll stay tuned on that. But anyway, the NHL draft, great time of year. Find out who your team is picking. If your team has a first round pick, looking at Pittsburgh. Um, but of course, they have the consensus of the top four of how they think it's going to go. NHL.com's Mike Morial and Adam Kimmelman uh, both think that Chicago are going to take Connor Bedard, which duh, and that's not a surprise. They both think that Adam Fantilli from Michigan is going to go second to the Ducks. Again, that's not a big surprise. Fantilli's a great player. Hopefully, he doesn't get that kind of Jack Eichel itis that I think really hurt Jack Eichel, as far as thinking that he was picked second to a generational talent, and in most drafts probably would be drafted first. I think Fantilli probably would have been drafted first in most drafts, but Connor Bedard is one of those generational talents. And third, the Columbus Blue Jackets, they think that Leo Carlson, center from Sweden, Örebro in Sweden, is going to be the pick for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Good size center, 6'3", 198, not bad. And then for the San Jose Sharks, it's Will Smith, a center for the U.S. Under 18 National Team Development Program. Uh, yeah, I don't disagree with any four of those picks. After that, it kind of gets squirrely. Um, for those of you who are Sabres fans, they predict that we take either Matthew Wood. Let me scroll down to where that is. Adam Kimmelman says Matthew Wood, who's a right winger, plays for the University of Connecticut. A lot of people have compared him to Tage Thompson because he's a um, a tall guy, tall winger with a booming shot. He's 6'4", 193. Um, and I couldn't imagine the Sabres having to and then, towers, opposite of each other on the power play, or one playing power play one and one playing power play two. That would be awesome. Um, and then Zach Benson is the guy that Mike Morial says that Buffalo will take. He plays on a wing with Matt Savoy in Winnipeg. I don't always play that, well, they're going to pick a guy that plays with your one of your top prospects. So we'll see. I don't know that I see that. I mean, if things fall where Wood's already taken, um, then maybe they do go that way. Um, but the name to watch at this draft is got a guy named Matvey Michkov. He is an 18-year-old Russian, and he plays for Sochi in the Russian league, the Continental Hockey League. The thing to watch out for Matvey Michkov is that they were thinking that he was going to be the second best player in this draft, and he maybe even challenge Connor Bedard. He's got phenomenal puck skills. But the problem with Matvey Michkov is that he is signed to a contract through 2025 in Russia, so he can't leave Russia now unless either the player, the team, the team that drafts them buys the contract out. He's going to be stuck in Russia. So how far does he fall? Um, in this mock draft, one of the guys has him being taken by Montreal. I don't think Montreal takes him. Montreal needs more immediate help. The other guy has Arizona taking him, which makes a little bit more sense for me because Arizona actually has multiple draft picks this round. They are building for the future, but they've got a lot of draft capital right now, and they could wait on one pick to show up. If it's a phenomenal generational talent in Mitchkov. After that, again, these teams need immediate help, or at least within the next couple of years help. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo, if he falls to Buffalo and Kevin Adams doesn't take him, that's a fireable offense in my mind. Like, Buffalo is in such a good position to be able to take a player and sit on him for a few years, and let him develop. Let the Russians pay to develop him. You know, I don't have a problem with that. We're willing to let Noah Osterlund play in Sweden for a couple seasons. Why not let Matt Michkov play in Russia for a couple seasons, and then come over when he's an adult, kind of like that Kirill Kaprizov idea that he comes over when he's much more developed and just steps in and plays. So, but that's a name to watch. That's a name that could every year in the draft. We always have a player that's highly rated that drops from where we thought they would. Um, and it happened last year with the first overall pick. And I can't even remember his name now. Yikes! Uh, but that's how far he fell. Well, he fell like four spaces to the Seattle Kraken, but um, I think he was shocked that he didn't go first or second, and then goes all the way to fourth. So it happens. It happens every draft. There's a guy that drops, usually because they're too small. But in this case, I think it's because of Matvey Michkov's contract issue that he's going to fall. Um, hopefully to my Sabres, but I think I think Arizona will probably take him because they do have two top 10 picks. So um, let's take a look at the top five forward. Or I'm sorry, top six forward. So, you unrestricted free agency starts on July 1st. That is, it's my birthday. First off, I always love. Well, I don't always love July 1st. July 1st, 2007 was an awful birthday. That was the birthday that Danny Briere and Chris Drury signed with other teams in the matter of like an hour. That kind of ruined that birthday, but it's generally pretty enjoyable to watch the free agents get snapped up, and it's been disrupted the last few years where with COVID, the seasons run long or short, or um, the draft gets messed up, and then the free agency gets messed up. So this is the first time in I think 3 seasons that it's been held on that free agency actually ends when the uh, contracts are supposed to end, which is on July 1st. So these are I've got two full lines of forwards, two defensive pairs, and one goaltender to look out for as far as who you should like or should be looking for when it comes to free agency day. So my top six forwards, and we'll talk about each one of them. I've got Ryan O'Reilly, Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Alex Killorn and Max Domi. Now, this isn't saying that these are the most phenomenally talented. There are some that are phenomenally talented forwards, but I think these are the guys that are going to generate a lot of buzz going into free agency. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly. Um, he led the St. Louis Blues to the Stanley Cup championship, won the Conn Smythe. Valued for his leadership, valued for his ability to win faceoffs. He's a tremendous faceoff guy. Um, there's going to be a lot of suitors for Ryan O'Reilly, even though Ryan O'Reilly's getting up there. He's like 32 years old, which I hate saying because it's like 18 years younger than I am. But um, he had a little bit of a rough season. He had a little bit of injuries during the season, but he came over to Toronto and played really well. He had 9 points in 11 games with the Leafs. Did have another injury toward the end of the season, but got back for the playoffs. Um, I think he had like 6 points in the playoffs for the. Or no, I'm sorry, he had 9 points in 11 games of the playoffs. He had 11 points in 13 games in the regular season with the Leafs after the trade. He only had 30 points last season in 53 games. That just shows you how injured he was last season. It was just kind of fluke injuries. And St. Louis had a ton of injuries going into last year, which precipitated their entire sell off that they had. Um, but Ryan O'Reilly is going to be very valued coming out of free agency. I don't know that he's going to get sign the highest contract, but he's going to be up there. Right now, he earns $7.5 million annual average annual value. So um, I think he's going to go a little bit above that, but we'll see. Second, Patrick Kane. This is his first time testing free agency. He spent his entire career with the Chicago Blackhawks, has had a phenomenal career with the Chicago Blackhawks. He had kind of mixed results with the Rangers. Let's see, he had 57 points last season, which is kind of low for him. 12 of the 12 came in 19 games with the Rangers. Um, he scored 6 points in 7 games with the Rangers as they were eliminated by the Devils in the first round. So he didn't have a horrible playoffs, but there are some guys on that roster that disappeared during the playoffs. But it wasn't Patrick Kane. The only thing is Kane didn't score goals in the playoffs. He only had 1 goal. Um, and when you think of Patrick Kane, he's a goal scorer. Yeah, he's 34 years old. It's his first crack at free agency. I don't know that he's going to get 10.5 million, which is what his average annual value of his contract was at the end of this contract. Um, but when July 1st happens and the money starts flowing, it gets stupid. And I wouldn't be surprised if some desperate, stupid team backs up the Brinks trunk for him. I think Patrick's probably got a couple of years left at kind of elite scoring level. I think this year was kind of an aberration, just with all the stuff that was hanging over him, how bad the Blackhawks were this season. Um, that he'll once again come around and be a good player when it comes to scoring in the NHL next season. So just needs to be in a good fit. I don't foresee him going back to Chicago. Yeah, he's gonna. Connor Bedard's there, and they could sell him on a mentorship role, but I think he wants to win. And I'm not gonna say he's gonna go to Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo is gonna drop that kind of cash for a player that um, yeah, he's from Buffalo. It would be a nice human interest story that, prodigal son comes home, returns and all that stuff. I'm just not thinking that Kane's going to be a massive fit with the Sabres. So, um, but somebody's going to back up some ridiculous money for him and bring him in. Same thing with Vladimir Tarasenko. Um, the sell off of the Blues started with Vladimir Tarasenko. He was actually traded pretty early in the whole trade season for the NHL in the season. He almost split his time between St. Louis and the New York Rangers. He had 50 points in 69 games. Only 21 of them coming in New York, and I think he played 30 in New York. Kinda disappointing. I don't think they got exactly what they thought out of Tarasenko. Um, Teams this year are gonna have to gamble on whether they're gonna get the guy that can score 60 to 70 points, or with and they actually had a career high the year before with 82 points, or the guy that put up 24 points in 2 seasons. He did have some nagging injuries that kept him out most of 2 seasons going into the lockout, so, um, it's kind of a gamble with Tarasenko. If you get a healthy Tarasenko, he can put up a pile of points for you. He just needs to be in a good position in that franchise. I think with the Rangers, when we look back at the Rangers, that the idea is that the Rangers had too many players, not enough pucks, and nobody. I think everybody was kind of deferring to one another rather than stepping up and taking the bull by the horns to drive that team. Tyler Bertuzzi. Um, This is gonna be an interesting dude because I think he really sold himself during the playoffs. This guy's a buzzsaw on the ice, and we saw the problem is he spent way too much of his career off of the ice. He's never played a full 82 games in a season. Closest he came was, I think, 73. That was like his second season in the league. He's been in the league about 9 years now. Um, he played 50 last season, had 2 stints on the IR. I know he broke his hand against Buffalo at one point, had just come off the IR, played his first game against Buffalo, broke his hand, and was back on the IR. So he has injury issues, and I think it's because of the game he plays. It's just, he's a buzzsaw, puts himself in front of everything, and just gets injured. And it's the toll of the type of game he plays. Um, but during the playoffs, he really sold himself. He had 10 points, in those 7 games. The Boston Bruins did not lose because of, Tyler Bertuzzi. If they got efforts from some other guys like what Tyler Bertuzzi put out there, they probably would have knocked out the, Florida Panthers in the first round. Um, but yeah, uh, that team that's gonna take him is gonna have to weigh, do we trust that he's gonna be the guy that was in the playoffs, or is he gonna be the guy that gets injured all the time? It'd be nice to have when he's on the ice, but we're just not gonna have him on the ice enough. So, I think he gets a nice bump up from his current, $4.75 million annual or average annual value on his contract. I would say probably somewhere in the range of 6 million for Tyler Bertuzzi would make sense for 18. The next one is Alex Killorn. This guy is a beast. He is a big body. He has, played a massive part in the 3 cup runs that the, Tampa Bay Lightning went on, the 2 championships and the loss of the finals to the Colorado Avalanche last season. He's not the flashy guy like Stamkos or Kucherov, but he's just a big body who contributes in various ways. He had a career high of 64 points this year, which is what you wanna do when you go into your contract year. Um, 82 games last season. He's fairly reliable. Um, He's only had 1 major stint on the IR, missing, like, 14 games in 2019, 2020. So, he's been playing, like, 81, 82 games most of his career. So, he's put the miles in. He's been fairly reliable, so, and this guy puts up he's not gonna lead your team in scoring. He's going to be that guy that fills your middle 6 uh, lines and contributes that way. It plays tough. You could stick him on the power play, put him down in the slot, tipping pucks and things like that. That's how I'd use a guy like Alex Killorn. I would love for Buffalo to get Alex Killorn. I think that is a guy that you want in your middle 6, is a guy that just throws the body around, um, is fairly resilient for the type of game he plays, and, can get you a good amount of points. Not a point per game player by any stretch of the imagination, but, um, in that 50 to 60 point range is where I would want him, um, as a player. And he is like 31 or 32 years old, so he's got a few more seasons on him. Seeing that he stays healthy. Problem is he's got a 4.445 average annual value on his contract now. He's going to get significant bump, just off of his experience, his championship pedigree. He's probably going to be in the $8 million range. which, yeah, people are like, God, that's a lot of money for a guy that gets 64 points a season. It's the game, the intangibles of the game that he plays, I think will get him closer to that $8 million contract, um, which means he's not going to be in Tampa next season. Again, I want him on Buffalo. I don't mind if they pay him that much money. Um, they've got the cap space to bring him in, and he fills in that role. It seems like Zemgus Girgensons is not going to return to the team next season, so this would be definitely an upgrade over Zemgus. And and then the final forward to look at is Max Domi, the off-traveled Max Domi, another guy that really sold himself during the playoffs. Um, but he doesn't have the injury issues. I mean, he doesn't play a full. He hasn't played really a full season too much either. But he doesn't have quite as lengthy injury issues as Tyler Bertuzzi. There has been rumors of his not being the best team player, which I think hurts him. Uh, and most of the reason why he has moved on so many times. Give me just a second. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah. So Max Domi, he's won with 6 teams in 9 years. So let's take a look. It started with Arizona, and he went to Montreal, and he went to Columbus. They went to Carolina, and he went to Chicago. Pretty much all the C teams, and then moved to Dallas. He's going down the alphabet, I guess. So yeah, he's in Dallas this year. He played well in the playoffs for the Dallas Stars. He he's kind of getting into that. I think he's always aimed to get into this role, but I think he's starting to perfect his craft of being a pest. And if you're looking for a Wish.com version of Brad Marchand, perhaps you can take a look at Max Domi. Um, if you're this guy is not going to make the most money out of his next contract. But if you're looking for a guy that's going to up your forechecking game, this is a guy you want to look at. He's relatively cheap right now, 3.0 million average annual value on that contract. If you can get him up to 5 million, I think you can get him signed. And again, a middle six guy that's going to really amp up your forecheck, energy line guy that can score you points. He had a really good run with the Chicago Blackhawks, awful team. Got 56 points in 80 games, and I think 50 of those were the Blackhawks, and 60 of them were the Blackhawks. Played 20 with the Dallas Stars. He didn't score as much in the regular season with the Dallas Stars. He only had 7 points in those 20 games of the 56 that he scored. Um, but he did pick that up in the playoffs. He had 13 points in 19 games. Again, the Dallas Stars did not get eliminated because of Max Domi, although he did take a dumb penalty in the Vegas series. I would say that Max Domi is probably full value for about $5 million a season, wherever he lands up, his likely seventh NHL franchise. Let's move on to defensemen. As far as the top free agent defensemen that are coming, there's four that I'm going to highlight here: John Klingberg, Matt Dumba, Dmitry Orlov, and Radko Gudas. One of these things is not like the other. Uh, but there's a reason why I include Gudis. Gudis is not the flashy, power play quarterback type defenseman. He's the banger. We'll talk about him in a minute. But let's talk about John Klingberg. Klingberg he gambled in the offseason last year, and I think he kind of lost. He got quite chat. Just making sure I got everybody on chat. All right. Um, so he gambled last year and lost. He waited forever to sign a contract and settled to sign. He kind of did the Taylor Hall thing, and he signed a 1 year deal with a team that he knew was going to be kind of bad, uh, hoping that he could parlay that into a trade to a contender late season. Signed a 1 year deal with the Anaheim Ducks for $7 million. He did get traded at the trade deadline to the Minnesota Wild to bolster up their defenses heading into the playoffs. He had 33 points in 67 games. Not bad for him. None of them coming with Minnesota after being dealt. Um, but he did have a career high 47 points last year with the Stars. Um, and then a good run in the playoffs. He had 4 points in 4 playoff games with the Minnesota Wild. He was injured going into the playoffs, missed some time, and the Wild were eliminated in 4 games to the Dallas Stars. Had to sting a little bit. It's kind of why I think he gambled and lost. He could have stayed with Dallas or re-signed with Dallas, um, but Dallas needed to get Nathan Robertson under contract, so I don't think Klingberg would have ever worked in Dallas. But he should have signed earlier in the offseason. And I'm wondering if he's going to either do the same thing this year, sign with a risky team, and hope that at the deadline he can move to a contender again, or um, does he take term and settle down at a club? Um, he's got a good game. I mean, he's a decent offensive defenseman. So um, we'll see. He did have kind of a rough defensive time in Anaheim, but honestly, everybody did in Anaheim. It was not a good season. Uh, Also in Minnesota, Matthew Dumba. He's been subject to rumors for years. They've been talking about him coming to the Rangers, coming to other teams. I know Buffalo even talked about bringing him in. Um, but he's going to get his first bite at free agency. He's a right shot D man, like Klingberg. May not find as many suitors out there because he doesn't contribute a whole lot on the offensive end. Um, and this year he had a career low of 14 points in 79 games. So it wasn't like he was injured to the point that he couldn't play. He was playing, just was not getting any points. Probably was part of the reason why they brought John Klingberg in. So he's also makes a lot of money. So he makes $6 million in average annual value. Um, Most of his career, he's been around the 20-25 point mark. Um, I don't think that he gets as I don't think he's going to find as many suitors. There's a plethora of right shot defensemen um, that I think he kind of sits there for a while, or he takes the first thing that comes along and gets himself as much money as he can. Um, but yeah, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in the whole defensive realm. I took Dumba because he was a little younger than some guys on the list. Third guy, this I think is going to be the belle of the ball. Dmitry Orlov, he's a 31-year-old left-handed defenseman. Very, very highly sought after a pretty distinguished career with the Washington Capitals. Then was traded at the deadline with Garnet Hathaway to the Boston Bruins. Um, he's a pretty reliable 25 to 35 point defenseman each season. Um, and then, he did get to a career high of 36 points this season between Boston and Washington. He played some really big games down the stretch, and he had 8 points, 8 assists in the 7 game series against Florida. He didn't again, Boston lose because of Dmitry Orlov or Tyler Bertuzzi. These guys got traded into Boston. They actually enhanced Boston. As good as Boston played all season, they should have been even better because the guys that they traded for the deadline overperformed. Tyler Bertuzzi and Dmitry Orlov, they both overperformed. For some reason, Boston just I don't know what it was. I'm still confounded by that first round loss. And then finally, let's talk Radko Gudas. Well, I'm going to say that for Dmitry Orlov, he, somebody's going to back up the Brinks truck for him just based off of his play at the end of the season, play at the play during the playoffs. He's going to make a significant amount more than $5.1 million average annual value than what his current contract is. So, yeah, just get ready for a shopping spree there, Dimitri. It's going to be a good July 1st for you. And then finally, Radko Gudas. Look, you're not getting Radko Gudas to quarterback your power play to put up 40 points. You're getting Radko Gudas because you want him to hit the guy there in the corner. You want him to be that physical force on your back end. He was, Matthew Kachuk was the face of the Florida Panthers in the playoffs, but the I think the everlasting visage of the Florida Panthers in this playoff run is going to be Radko Gudas and his massive beard and his gap tooth smile um, as he's wreaking havoc on NHL defensemen. So or NHL forwards down in the corners. So um, look, I think Radko's gonna make more money than he did this year. He only made $2.5 million. A team that is a competitive team is going to take him. Like if you're Chicago, you're not taking Radko Gudas. Like that would be dumb. Um, you're taking Radko Gudas if you're Boston. If you're you even Buffalo. Buffalo could take Radko Gudas because they want that physical force on the back end. Pair him with the um, Labushkin and let them wreak havoc on the back end on the team's top little skinny forwards and blow them up. Uh, yeah, uh, Radko Gudas is going to make some money from a power team, which is funny because I mean this guy was nearly ran out of the league when he was playing for Philadelphia. Won playoffs. He was just, I mean, just an absolute defensive liability on the ice. Um, but he's upped his game. I think his time in Florida has done him really well. And well, his time in Washington, then time in Florida did him really well. And yeah, he's going to get paid off of this one. So $2.5 million. Expect a pay rise for Dimitri or for Radko Gudas. Um, I'm not going to go crazy here. 3.5 to $4 million a year for Radko Gudas to get him on a team like a competitive team. I don't know that Vegas will go after him again. They're still in cap hell to an extent. So, um, but yeah, he's going to go to a contender. He's going to make about $4 million. And then finally, there's only one goalie that I looked at that I thought really gave anything that you know makes sense for anybody. Sure, you got your guys like Semyon Varlamov, just like a bunch of old guys, like 37, 38-year-old goaltenders that don't have a whole lot of. They're not starting goaltending material. The only guy that really is in free agency now. Now that the season's over, he will be in free agency once July 1st happens. Um, is Aiden Hill? Guy just won a Stanley Cup Finals, and you may be saying, "Well, how can you trade? How can you get rid of Aiden Hill if you're the Vegas Golden Knights?" Well, there's precedence for it. Last year, Darcy Kemper walked from the uh, uh, Colorado Avalanche to go to Washington. I mean, it didn't quite work out for Washington. Didn't quite work out for Colorado either, but there's precedence for doing it. And so, yeah, the Aiden Hill is likely going to walk just because right now Vegas has like, oh, they've got, they got five goaltenders on their roster. They've got Robin Leonard, who was injured all season. You had Logan Thompson, all star, who was injured late in the season and couldn't play in the playoffs. Then you had Laurent Brossoit, who was the backup, brought in to back up Thompson after um, Leonard was injured. Then you have oh yeah, brought in Jonathan Quick at the deadline, and then you had Aiden Hill, who you signed as a free agent. Hill is supposed to be your Coachella Valley, or not Coachella Valley. Who's there? Henderson or Silver Knights goaltender. That's what Aiden Hill was supposed to be, and he comes in, wins the Stanley Cup. Halfway through the playoffs, replacing Brossoit, who was injured. Um, I didn't trust the Vegas Golden Knights goaltending at all this entire postseason. They proved me wrong. Both Brossoit and Aiden Hill, both are free agents, and I think both are walking. Aiden Hill is going to get a nice payday coming out of that. I don't even know how much he's making. 2.175 average annual value. So Aiden Hill is going to make a lot of money next season, and the Vegas Golden Knights do not have that money to give him. So um, they might be able to do something if they can figure out what to do with like Robin Leonard and maybe another piece off the roster. But I think any move that they make right now will be incredibly unpopular. Um, but to save Aiden Hill, who knows? Um, I think if they get rid of Robin Leonard somehow, then yeah, we could talk about bringing in Aiden Hill, but I think it's going to take Robin Leonard and something else to be able to fit Aiden Hill in long term. Let's see. That's it. Yeah, that's it for the free agents. Again, July 1st is when free agency starts, free agency madness. They get a week beforehand to be able to start negotiating so that we'll start seeing deals just pour in on July 1st. And of course, a lot of these guys can re-sign with their teams now. Some of these guys will choose to sign with their current team because they can get an extra year on their deal. Um, we'll see, like, Jesper Brad just signed an 8-year deal. Max you can sign as a free agent is 7 years. So you'll see things like sign and trades, so they'll get an extra year. Um, which is what we saw in the Provorov deal. I think there was a uh, guy was signed for an extra amount of time and was able to be traded that way. So, um, all right, time for predictions. This is going to be humiliating. This is a. I went back and watched the episode of the show that I did at the beginning of the season. The link is on YouTube. Um, it was I think October 7th is when I did the show uh, during preseason, just before the Thursday before the European game started between Nashville and San Jose, and yeah, so, it wasn't good. Let's just call it for what it was. So let's talk about. We'll go through my predictions for for each of the divisions that I put up there and how right and how wrong I was. Um, Predicted order of finish in the Pacific. I predicted Edmonton winning, Los Angeles finishing second, Calgary finishing third, Vancouver finishing fourth, Vegas finishing fifth out of the playoffs, Anaheim sixth, Seattle seventh, and San Jose eighth. Now, how it finished was Vegas won the division. Edmonton and Los Angeles finished 2-3. Seattle won the wild card in that division. Um, and then Calgary, Vancouver, Anaheim, and San Jose. Um, so yeah, we're gonna have to give myself this. Yeah, that was not a good call. Vegas not even making the playoffs. I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot about the even worse one that I made this year, which we'll get to in a moment. In the Central, wasn't too bad. I did overpredict the St. Louis Blues, though. Uh, Yeah, predicted order finish in the Central: Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, Nashville, Dallas, Winnipeg, Arizona, and Chicago. Again, Dallas conference finals team didn't even make the playoffs. So I've really kind of boned this whole thing in at the beginning from jump. Was not going to have a good time here. So Colorado did end up winning the Central Division. Predicted that right. St. Louis, I predicted second. I think they finished fifth, sixth, something like that. Yeah, I think sixth. Um, so it was Colorado, um, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and then Nashville, St. Louis, Arizona, and Chicago. So I had Arizona and Chicago right. Um, they fought in the tank battle to the bitter end. Although Arizona had a better season than I think a lot of people would have predicted. Um, Chicago, of course, winning the tank battle. Eventually, they finished second in the standings, but did end up getting the first overall pick. So they won the tank battle. Let's go on to the Metro Division. This is going to be a theme here. So I picked the Rangers to win the Metro Division, followed by Carolina, Pittsburgh, Islanders, New Jersey, Washington Capitals, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Philadelphia Flyers. Um, yeah, I oversold the Rangers. Rangers finished third in the division. They ended up playing the New Jersey Devils, who finished second. Carolina finished first in the division, followed by New Jersey Devils, who had their I I don't think anybody predicted that New Jersey would have a 50-point jump from year to year. But New Jersey finished second, a close second. It was, in fact, the last day of the season when they finally decided who would win the Metro. Um, then you go to the Rangers finishing third. The Who got fourth? Islanders. Islanders got fourth. Um, Carolina eliminated the Islanders. Devils eliminated the Rangers, which will make sense in a moment why that was bad. Finally, this is I'm gonna my predicted order of finish in the Atlantic. Whew. Well, I mean, I got most of the playoff teams right, but I got one really, really, really wrong. So Florida, I had them finishing first. They had just come off the President's Trophy. I thought, they brought in Matthew Kachuk. I was a little leery about what missing Huberto, and I almost was proven right about being leery about that because for most of the season, Florida struggled and only caught fire towards the end of the season to make the playoffs. Toronto finished second, which they did in real life. Tampa finishing third, which they did in real life. Ottawa finishing fourth, that was not right. That ended up being Florida. Uh, I had Buffalo in fifth, which is right. Detroit in sixth, I think was right. Boston. My lord. Boston, I had finishing seventh. Ooh, I was wrong on that one. A little bit, just a skosh. Missing the playoffs. And then Montreal at eighth, that was right. So I had a lot of the division right. I just had one really, really, really wrong. And that was Boston being out of the playoffs, Ottawa being in the playoffs. Um, like I said, I think it was Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Florida, Buffalo, either Detroit, then Ottawa, or Ottawa, then Detroit, and then Montreal. And yeah, that was what can I say? That was a bone that. I predicted for the Eastern Conference Final the Rangers versus Florida Panthers. So I got one of the Eastern Conference Final teams right. Um, I was really high on the Rangers, and really the Rangers should have done a lot better than they did. I think they just brought too much in at the trade deadline. Again, too many players, not enough pucks for that team, and because I mean, really, like every line had like superstars on it, and I just don't know. I think they kind of deferred to each other and didn't play the game. So in Western Conference, my Western Conference final was Edmonton versus Colorado. Kind of close. Um, Vegas eliminated Edmonton. Colorado. Uh, Colorado. The problem with the Colorado is they just had too many injuries this season, and um, that's all. They just couldn't get past Seattle. Seattle full value for the victory in that playoff series, but Colorado too many injuries. I think they definitely downgraded in goaltending, and yeah, paid the price. First round exit in 7 games, and then my Stanley Cup Finals was Colorado versus the Rangers. None of that happened, and then my Stanley Cup winner is the Rangers. Yeah, my Stanley Cup final flamed out in the first round, and even I thought the Rangers didn't have a bad season. I thought they underperformed quite a bit, um, which I think drove them to bringing in guys like Kane and Tarasenko. Um, but yeah, just complete underperforming. And it looked so good that first 2 games of the Devils series. I thought, oh man, well, the Devils just don't have the experience. They're just going to get blown up by the Rangers. Rangers going to move on and get some good rest for the second round. And then it just flipped. Like um, that whole series flipped on its head. So anyway, that's it for my predictions. I will say another prediction that was kind of embarrassing. I did say that Gerard Gallant was going to win the Jack Adams Award. that he was going to get his due for being a great coach, and lo and behold, just after the season, he gets fired. So once again, oh my lord,
Excuse me just a second. I've got to go pee and then throw up, and because the information is not pleasing.
it was
This
not pleasing at all, not at all. So, um, anyway, ESPN has released their way too early. In fact, I just lost it. They're way too early power rankings. Let me get to ESPN right quick. So for next season, how they think teams are going to shake out. If you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, it's not bad news. They're the team that was not in the playoffs that they ranked the highest. So um, they ranked first Vegas Golden Knights, kind of lazy. Um, and from there, it gets interesting though. They in second place they have the New Jersey Devils. Again, what do they do with their goaltending? I think it's going to be the big key for the Devils, and I think they do take a little bit of a step back. I think they way overachieved this year. They do have a phenomenally talented team, and I think the experience of getting through the first round of the playoffs is going to serve them really well heading forward. I think they're going to be a tough out over the next few seasons. Third, they've got the Colorado Avalanche. I don't really agree with this one either. Colorado, too many questions. Like, is Gabriel Landeskog ever going to play again? There's lots of doubt that he may miss and may have to retire based off of his injury. Um, who you going to get in goal? Yeah, you got some good young talent on the back end. You got, of course, you got Nathan McKinnon and all that stuff. They're going to be a playoff team. I just don't know that they're the third best team in the NHL right now. As Dallas Stars ranked number 4. Boy, I like Dallas. I like Jake Ottinger. I think that he's a great goaltender, but that this playoffs was very surprising to me as far as Jake Ottinger goes. I thought he was very inconsistent. Um, and who can are they going to be able to address some of the defensive deficiencies that were kind of exposed in that they have a lot of free agents. In fact, the guys they picked up at the deadline of getting Dodonov, who played really well, and Max Domi, of course, played really well. I've got him one of my top free agent forwards. But you got Pavelski and other guys that will be hitting free agency. So Dallas will have some money to spend, but they also have some roster to rebuild. So uh, I don't know that I agree with Dallas being the number 4 ranked team. Boston down to 5. This is going to be a summer of flux for the Bruins because they've got to deal with, is Bergeron going to stay or go? They listed Bergeron as a top free agent. He's not going to be a free agent. He's either going to retire or he's going to re-sign with the Bruins. He's not going to test free agency. He's there. I can't see him being in another uniform. Although I'm probably going to have to bomb myself when he signs with the Rangers or something crazy like that in the offseason. Carolina Hurricanes 6. Yeah, I mean Carolina's going to have to do something. Are they going to re-sign Max Pacioretty? Because that was an issue this year with Max Pacioretty coming back for 5 games and then blowing out the same Achilles tendon. Um, and that's why I didn't put Max Pacioretty as a top free agent. I think it's going to be a while before the teams really start lining up for Pacioretty, because I don't think he's going to be ready for the start of the season. Edmonton Oilers 7. I would actually have them higher. Um, is Edmonton a perfect franchise? No, but I think that anytime you got Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid together, um, and I like some of the pieces and parts that they put together there. Um, and I like Evan Bouchard. I like a lot of that team. They're just missing a couple pieces, but I think they're a lot better than the 7th ranking that they gave Edmonton. I think they're going to be challenging for conference finals, maybe even a Stanley Cup final here in the next couple seasons. Tampa Bay Light, and especially now that Jack Eichel has won a Stanley Cup title, and Connor McDavid has not gotten to the Stanley Cup Finals. Um, I'm sure we're going to see mega Connor McDavid in the next couple seasons. Plus, with the new phenom coming in, the new generational talent, the new Connor is coming in. Um, I think he's gonna flex next season. I think he's really gonna flex, and he's gonna try and be the all consuming NHL great player that he is. So, uh, Tampa Bay Lightning number 8. I don't agree with this one. I think Tampa Bay is going to take a step back, partially because what we talked about with Alex Killorn having to go. This is another one of those salary cap hell teams. They have to give up pieces, um, players off their roster just to keep financially solvent at this point, or at least not in trouble with the NHL. Um, and with the Tampa Bay Lightning, they haven't had many draft picks. In fact, Chicago's got a couple, like the next 3 drafts, they've got Tampa's draft picks. And beyond that, then Nashville's got Tampa's draft picks. I mean, the cupboard is barren in Tampa. I don't even know if they need to show up to Nashville for the draft. Um, it's that bad in Tampa. So core is aging. They really, I mean, if they get an injury, that's just going to be, a key injury to a guy like Kucherov or Stamkos or Vasilevsky. Oh, it could be just an absolutely devastating thing for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've got the Florida Panthers at 9. I have them a little bit higher than that. I think Florida took a time to gel under Paul Maurice, but they got buy-in towards the end of the season. That just reflects what the run that they went with the Stanley Cup. Do I think they're like top 2, top 3? Not really. I put them around 6 or so. But Florida have got a good young team. Matthew Tkachuk has been really hit his stride there towards the end of the season, and they've got some of those key guys really locked up for a while. So Florida should be okay. They're a little bit of cap trouble, but I think nothing that they can't manage their way out of. Islanders listed as 10. I'm okay with that. I think they underachieved a lot this season, barely sneaking into the playoffs. I'm not sold on Lou Lamoriello as a general manager at this point. I think he's really kind of gone past his best by date as a general manager. Um, it's just not a good overall roster. They got good pieces and parts. Um, the trade with Vancouver was pretty decent, but um, you know, Scotty Mayfield, Semyon Varlamov, Pierre Engvall, Zach Parise are all free agents. Who does he bring in? It means they're going to have cap, but I think there's a lot of holes to fill. But when you have the goaltending that they have, I think that you can have a kind of a lackluster roster and still make hay in the Metropolitan Division. Plus, I think a lot of teams in the Metro are starting to fall off. Um, I'm looking at you, the Capitals and Penguins. Number 11, the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a little surprising. I think mostly because they were the previous ranking was fourth. Um, I think mostly because it's the swirl around the team. New GM Brad Living. What does he do with Austin Matthews, who's now, that he's in that period where he can do the 8-year contract? Do you sign him to 8 years? Do you back up the Brinks truck for Austin Matthews any more than it already is? I mean, he's making almost $12 million. Um, or do you cash out and restock the pond? That's that'll be interesting. I think that's going to be the talk of the summer, until they either do the contract or they make the trade. So, um, and don't sell short of the idea of a sign and trade. So if he signs a 8-year contract this week, he could still get traded. Um, but we'll see. Um, that's going to be interesting. I don't know that I have Toronto this far low. But if you trade Austin Matthews, yeah, that makes sense. The Rangers being at 12, Gerard Gallant, uh, I think they well, I guess the thing was that Gerard Gallant had lost the room. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. After watching what Buffalo did, getting rid of coaches every 2 years is not the best idea. And there's something to be said for a little bit of continuity in the locker room. And I mean, look, we're at the beginning of the season. Remember, Devils fans after the first 3 games were screaming fired Lindy, and then Lindy leads them to just an absolute, you know, barn burner of a season. So um, there's something to be said for longevity. Lindy Ruff would know that more than anything. I mean, he spent what 14 seasons in Buffalo. Um, but yeah, I think they panic fired Gerard Gallant. Gallant's a good coach. I mean, he's won everywhere he's gone. Yes, they underperformed in the Devil series, but I think again that was because they had too many superstars in the team and uh, not a not enough not enough pluggers. And so now it's Peter Laviolette's mess to deal with, and what happens with the Rangers with the free agents that are coming out with Tarasenko and Patrick Kane. And then, hey, my Buffalo Sabres 13th. And if you're reading anything into that, that says that they think Buffalo is going to be a playoff team next season. And I'm absolutely here for it. Um, uh, uh, the big thing this summer is dealing with Owen Power's contract. He becomes it's the final season of his rookie contract. Do they give him the 8-year deal? Do they back up the Brinks truck? It's hard to do because I mean he only has had one full season in Buffalo, but he's played well, and I only think he's going to get better. So I wouldn't mind if they dump a ton of cash on him. They've got the salary cap space to do it. Um, and there's nothing that we see in his game that says, this guy could be a bust. He's done really well. So, yeah, I mean, take care of the contract. Buffalo should be making the playoffs next season. There are a couple guys that I would love to see them getting out of free agency. Like I said, Alex Killorn. I wouldn't mind Max Domi. Um, Guys that can bang. I think that was kind of one of the things that they were missing last season, that they were getting banged around by teams, but they didn't have the guys to respond it. Uh, Gergensons and Okposo did kind of provide that from time to time. Not great, but they did provide the response. Jost as well. They banged. They're one of the biggest bodies in the world, but um, that's where I would focus if I'm the Buffalo Sabres. Somebody that's very responsible in their own zone, and that you feel good about putting out there on the at the end of the game, that can take a key face off, win the face off, and play responsible within their zone. Um, because there were just too many times last season that the Sabres got running around in their zone. They just looked like they had no clue what to do in their own zone. So if you can get some guys that are more responsible in their own zone, I think the sky's the limit for the Sabres. So they've got Minnesota at 14. Yes, no, maybe. Philip Gustafson was kind of a revelation for them, but he does need a new contract. Uh, Perhaps that's a guy I should put on the goalie list as free agents, possibly. But yeah, uh, played really well for the Wild. Pushed Marc Andre Fleury out of the net. LA Kings at 15. I don't know that I would have the Kings behind the Sabres at this point. I love my Sabres. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think the Sabres are ahead of the Kings by any stretch of the imagination. Um, they've got $7.3 million in cap space. They've got young guys. The question is in goal: do they let Corpusalo walk, and do they bring somebody in? Um, they did make the trade for Eric Portillo. Are they going to be able to get him signed? I don't know if they did get him signed or not. I think they had to have already by now. But yeah, how does he fit into their plans? I don't think that you put him in the NHL right away. He probably plays a year in their AHL affiliate and then gets into the NHL. Seattle Kraken. Again, I don't think I have the Seattle Kraken that far down the list. They have them at 16, which right there is the cutoff line for the playoffs when you think of the 32 team league. Half the teams make the playoffs. Seattle Kraken. Did they overachieve to an extent last year? Yes, but they won a round. It wasn't like there was a fluke or anything. They played really good hockey. Um, then next they have the Ottawa Senators at 17. Ottawa Senators is a cusp team for the playoffs. I don't disagree with them here. Calgary Flames at 18. Don't disagree with that here. A cusp team in the playoffs, but I don't think that they've got the guns to get into the playoffs next season either. Although they got a new coach, things can always flip that way. Detroit, yeah, I don't disagree with them being at 19. They're an up and coming team. I just think that they've got too much track to run to get to the playoffs. Nashville at 20. I thought they had a really good end of the season. I don't know that I have them at 20. I've had them maybe a little higher. I don't know that they're worse than the Calgary Flames. Andrew Burnett gets a chance to prove himself again. He took over behind the bench for Joel Quenneville when he was fired over the Kyle Beach incident and led the team to a President's Trophy. I can't fault him. I'm glad he got a chance. Pittsburgh at 21. So one of the things that we talked about in the next few years, if Sidney Crosby misses the playoffs next season, and Alex Ovechkin misses the playoffs next season, you're going to see a play-in round in the NHL, just like the NBA does. You're going to have the ninth and 10th place teams in the division in the conference facing off against the wild card teams for the uh, to take on the top two teams in the division in the first, technically the first round, not the play-in round. Um, they've got the Pittsburgh Penguins at 21. I don't disagree with that. There's a lot of swirl within Pittsburgh. Um, not enough draft capital, not enough prospects. They've got a lot of I got a lot of question marks. Winnipeg, same thing. Winnipeg is at 22. Problem with Winnipeg is that both Pierre Luc Dubois and Connor Hellebuck are rumored to want out. Um, and it sounds like there's going to be a rebuild in Winnipeg. They're first since really, rebuilding the franchise coming over from Atlanta. And it'll be interesting to see how Winnipeg takes that. Um, if they continue to sell out the building, if it becomes an extended uh, slide. So, 23 Capitals. Um, it'll be interesting. Alex Ovechkin wants to get that record, um, and he's going to stick around for a few more seasons. But if the Capitals are not competitive, does he push for a trade, or does the NHL do the play-in round? That'll be an interesting mix there in Washington, because Ovi is pretty used to making the playoffs. Same with Sidney Crosby. Um, are they going to stick around for rebuilds? And I think Washington's in a little bit a better place than Pittsburgh as far as prospects and draft capital, but um, there's a lot to build in Washington. 24 is St. Louis. Not surprising after the strip down of last season. They've got a lot of stuff to build back. Plus, they got to deal with Jordan Bennington. How long before he absolutely clubs somebody in the head with a stick? I don't know. 25 Vancouver Canucks. We all thought the Canucks were going to be better last year because they're going to have a full season of Bruce Boudreau behind the bench, taking care of the team, getting into the playoffs. Didn't happen. Bruce was gone by January, and the team kind of fell apart. Rick Tocchet is now the coach. He gets his first, hopefully, full season. Again, you can't keep firing coaches. Um, Perhaps it's the GM that needs to go next if that's the case. Um, but there's, I guess they're going to have to extend the rebuild a little bit in Vancouver to get where they need to go. Montreal at 26. I don't have a problem with it. Everybody else behind them kind of sucks. So, um, but I still think that they're going to bring up the rear in the Atlantic Division. Just they don't have enough yet to really start competing. Columbus Blue Jackets at 27. Uh, they've got they got the Provorov deal. I don't know that they're going to be that bad next season. The problem with the Blue Jackets is I think they brought in too much last season, and they had too many injuries. Zach Werenski being back is going to be huge for them. Damon Severson and Ivan Provorov being on the team. They got a new coach in Mike Babcock. Did Babcock learn from his previous stints and is going to be a little more player friendly? That remains to be seen. So there's a little swirl around Columbus. I don't have a problem with being at 27, but I do think they're going to be a little bit better. The Chicago Blackhawks, they got them at 28. Remember, this team is still absolute dumpster fire. Um, there's no way that should be at 28. Um, I get that Connor Bedard is a generational talent, but there is nothing else there. Yeah, you got Seth Jones and his brother. Um, But again, they traded off a bunch of stuff at the deadline, and they didn't really have a whole lot of stuff to trade before the deadline. So Jonathan Taves is not coming back. You might be able to convince Patrick Kane to come back, but I don't think he wants to hold anybody's hand while they do a rebuild. And I've even seen Blackhawks fans to suggest that they could be in the playoffs in a couple seasons. It's going to take a while. Um, that they need to rebuild, and I think they foolishly stripped their team last year, to be able to compete for the Connor Bedard and get Connor Bedard. They got Connor Bedard, that's fine, but I think what they got in return for the guys that they got rid of was just absolutely inept, so inadequate. So, I don't think the Blackhawks will be anywhere near 28. They've got Philadelphia at 29. Not disagreeing here. This is going to be a rebuild for the Flyers. It's going to take a little while. Danny Briere and Keith Jones have their work cut out for them. Um, and then Arizona at 30. I don't think they're that bad. They um, one they've got just tons of draft capital right now, um, and I think that they can. Um, the team was I think the team overperformed. Vamelka is not a bad goaltender. Um, And some of these young guys are starting to hit a little bit. So I don't have Arizona down in the 30s. I think Arizona is going to be in the higher 20s by the end of the season. Um, and the only thing with the Arizona Coyotes is the swirl about where the hell they're going to play. Um, I don't, nobody knows at this point. I know Gary Bettman will, if they start leaving Arizona, he's probably going to be holding onto their leg, being dragged out to the desert. But um, something's got to move with the Arizona Coyotes, and it's probably not going to be in anywhere in the state of Arizona. So, San Jose Sharks at 31. I don't disagree with that. I think San Jose's got a lot of work to do. Um, they had to get out from under some of these bad contracts. I thought they got rid of the wrong defenseman last year in getting rid of Brent Burns, who had some mileage still on him. They still have Eric Carlson. Eric Carlson had a phenomenal year last year. 100-point scoring defenseman. The problem is his contract is so awful that nobody's going to trade for it. Even if he gets 150 points this year, no one's going to deal for it because he's still got a few more seasons left on that contract. And he does have a full no movement clause, but I think if you went to Eric Carlson and said, "Hey, a contending team wants you on their roster," yeah, it's 4 more years at 11.5 annually for a guy that had a really great season last year, but was injured for several seasons beforehand. And then finally, 32, the Anaheim Ducks. Not a surprise here. There's a lot of work to do in Anaheim. There's some good young players. Of course, Zegras, the cover boy of the NHL 23. Troy Terry is a good player. Jamie Drysdale. You got Mason McTavish. Um, New coach. It's good to see that they brought in somebody that's not just a retread. Greg Cronin comes into play to be the coach there in Anaheim, and should do well. Um, if they give him the time to breathe and develop, he's a development coach, and that's what they need right now. Somebody that can, just like Donnie Renato in Buffalo, bring the kids along, let them develop. Yeah, there's going to be pains, but we're going to get through this, have a decent team, and they're going to have a decent team. So that's the top 20, or I'm sorry, the power rankings for next season. It's a long season, 82 games, and then another at least 16 wins to win the Stanley Cup. We'll After seeing that the draft is on Wednesday, the 28th, which is when I'm doing my birthday party, uh, I'm actually not going to be able to do a draft show. So we'll probably do a show afterwards to recap the draft, and talk about who went where, and then off to October. Before we end the show tonight, as the final show of the night, I've been doing the show solo, all except for one episode this season. I'm looking for a partner who wants to come and talk hockey. So if you like talking hockey on a weekly basis, talking about what's going on in the world of hockey, you've got a stable internet connection, laptop PC with a camera, and a microphone and some headphones that cancel out some of the echoes and stuff. Um, Send me reach out to me on social media if you're following me on social media. If not, you can send me an email of some sort. Yeah, reach out to me on my socials or my email, davidtvalente@gmail.com. Um, if you're interested in being a co-host, we'll probably do like a interview, just to kind of a back and forth, see how we interact talking about hockey, and see if that works. But anyway, been a pleasure to do the season with everybody. Thank you for watching. We got a couple folks watching on my main page and on Twitch. Thank you for watching. Jasper, if you're out there, thanks for watching the season, my dude. Heidi, thank you for watching the season. Um, Dan and all the good folks that have dropped in from time to time this year. I really appreciate it. But we'll see everyone next season on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. Take care, everybody.